Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the finale of Somewhere Between. A fantastic finale, which I'm not even going to beat around the bush. Let's just break everything that went down in this episode. There's certain things I'll go ahead and right off the bat. The whole Debray situation, obviously, it still never correlated really 100% in my head. I'm sure everyone figured, it made sense to people sooner, but to me, it just, the whole his part of playing on this, it's okay, he went off killing all these ladies, but Susanna's murder happened at the same time. They all that got pinned on Danny, so those murders he committed at that time. So I guess when Debray was kind of doing his murder spree in the original timeline, during this whole Serena situation, they didn't correlate it to be the same killer because they already thought they got Danny. So it's probably they're just oh, this is just some other serial killer on the loose, not realizing it's the same person. At some point in time, I guess the correlation was that obviously he could keep on doing what he needed to do because Danny took the rap for all those other murders. I guess because maybe at the time, basically it was if he didn't take the rap for him, things would have been bad for Grace. So it doesn't seem like it seems like it wasn't even just a Nico situation. It seemed like he knew it wasn't Nico, but still, nevertheless, I don't know, but all that was for the purposes of trying to keep his mom safe too as well. But got a lot more filled in details about certain things about the night in question, seeing what went down. It wasn't just Logan that was there. He was the one that was caught in film on the picture by Danny, but it wasn't just him. In actuality, all five, Jesse, the two brothers, Kyle, and Logan were all there. They were high. They followed Susanna back. So it seems like they weren't even tight-knit. I thought they were all friends. I think it's just they happened to randomly. It's oh man, we all got the same tattoo. That's so crazy. They're super high and everything, kind of wasted. And basically, Susanna rejected him. That's why Logan snapped and ended up killing her. Kyle tried to pull him off, but he came back and stabbed her with a knife. And she was still alive, but everyone panicked. Everyone wanted to help. Jesse wanted to help, as well as one of the brothers wanted to help, but Logan, being kind of the selfish prick that he is, wasn't going to let that happen because it's if I go down with it, when the cops start asking questions, I'm going to change up the story. Yeah, you wanted to save her, sure, but I'm, basically his word's going to mean more. It's going to bring up doubt for the others and stuff like that. And basically seeing who his family is, basically, because you end up, Ruskin kind of gets added into the equation, which it did. I thought Ruskin had some high position or something. It's no, he was just the family fixer, and he basically made everyone there stab Susanna 3 extra times each, so that they're all compliant in this situation, that no one has no blood on their hands. That way he took recordings of it so that none of them could say anything without they would be an accomplice in this situation. And it turns out that Jesse had a guilty conscience. Kyle kept the evidence, but not enough to turn on his family, because for him it is his family. Because that's the way to mold Kyle's story, to be he looked after them, so that family took him in and raised him, and it's how can I betray them? So he had the evidence just in case something like this happened, but he did it because Colleen and the governor took him in. They were his family, and and it was even messed up when you actually break down the whole Logan situation, when he walks up to Kyle and he's when I thought you died, a piece of me died too. It's you say that crap, but it didn't stop you from shooting him, not once but twice. Once in the leg, and in the moment Kyle pulled out his knife, you shot him in the side, and you're oh, he was going to try and kill me. It's he only tried to kill you after you shot him. But it's because it's interesting too, because it turns out Kyle actually joined the military, even faked his own death just to get away from his family. It was actually Colleen who actually tracked him down. But the fact of the matter is, it's something that even Laura picked up when they ended up finding their way to that area, was oh, he actually looked after Serena. She wasn't in, he made that little crown for her and everything, because it's hey, you stood up for your friend Nico. The fact is, you were willing to sacrifice yourself. You're a warrior. And I was dude, it's just sad that things kind of played out like that, especially because Colleen was she was I don't want things to go down this route, but the thing is, Serena saw her face. Serena had already met her before. We'll put 2 and 2 together, so Colleen would kind of go down when this is all said and done. God, there's so much to talk about. Grace, I was oh, Grace coming through because Serena was able to call her. I don't know whether it's good or bad with the whole calling 911 situation, because obviously that kept her from just calling the police directly. I mean, to be fair, I think the only quote unquote dirty cop in this was Nico's friend. I think he was like the only one that was on the take and everything. I mean, he was being blackmailed, forced, all that stuff, but still, like, I think he's the only one because it seems like the police department was good otherwise. Because so I was wondering, I was like, oh, is that a good thing? Because maybe there's other people that work for them. Maybe he was the only one. It seems like so far it seemed like he was the only one because there's no other cops that really popped up. So, but I guess there's always a possibility maybe they had someone else. Under their thumb or something like that. But I think it was more so to represent, oh man, she didn't call 911 because Laura had warned her before because of the whole like, oh, don't know if we can trust the cops or anything. So that kind of played a detriment. But she called Grace, which was a blessing and a curse because Grace is like, oh, I'm gonna call your dad. I have your daughter, help with Danny's case. I'm like, no, don't do it, Grace. You've been such a loving lady. Don't do something shitty at the very end, which she did. But I mean, it's like you can't blame her. She did it she had the best of intentions. She was looking out for her son, her baby, one of her baby boys, of course, and it's just like, it just sucks that she did that. You can almost let it slide because everything ultimately, like, obviously everything works out in the end, but it's like, you almost like, oh, even at the end, it kind of made you a little shitty. That sucks. But ultimately, Nico wonders, like, yo, that's not, Tom's dead. So, try to run. I mean, I'm even I can't overlook what Serena did. Like, using what Kyle taught her, she was able to kind of cause Logan to crash the car and get away from it in the first place. Also, like, forgetting fact is that brutal moment at the beginning where Laura ended up chopping off. It seems like they only, like, the way the camera was, it seemed like it was only as Pinky granted. Who's to say Laura didn't even chop off more? Because it looked like she had a hatchet when she, not a hatchet, is it a, no, it wouldn't be is it a hatchet? A butcher's hatchet? Whatever the case may be. Because Nico was like, yeah, it's not me you got to worry about. It's not me that's going to do it. It's going to be her. And the moment she did it, even Nico was kind of like, So, but I love that they did split up too. It's like, no, Laura's like, no, I'm going to help with Danny. You go do with the help with Serena. He's like, what, you for real? And she's like, yeah, I trust you. And he kisses him like, yeah. But she saves Danny by kind of blowing like up the governor by being like, yo, here's some evidence of your son doing it. Did you know that Tom was blackmailing people? And the governor was like, no, because in all honesty, he had no idea about this. It was solely Colleen. Like, she's the one that kind of handled all the dirty work because even the governor didn't even know about what Logan did. And it finally kind of dawned on Laura when she saw his reaction and stuff because they don't know about the whole Colleen angle because they just assumed it was a governor. But it's like, well, Colleen has like muscle in this whole situation too, but I think it's just because he's the one with the direct power. So nevertheless, it was pretty close too, because it's like, if it wasn't for that, like, Danny would have died because I mean, it was like he was minutes away from being executed. But the boy Nico came through in the end. When he ended up showing up in time, just when Logan showed up, and you have like him beating the crap out of Logan, like, it's like, yeah, getting him back just for everything that he's doing now. Plus the fact is that he killed Susanna. It's like, oh, you think I'm bluffing about the evidence? Oh, if I wear your jacket, does that make me your boyfriend? And he starts kicking his ass some more, beating the crap out of him, which he justly deserves. And Colleen shows up at the same time Laura does, and Colleen's threatening to push Serena off, but Ruby comes through and pushes her back. But then, like, Logan gets the gun and almost shoots her, but at that moment, Nico took the bullet for her. Life for another, and I'm like, this means Nico's gonna die. I was like, oh man, don't tell me they're gonna kill, because I knew it was gonna be like, okay, get to Serena first and then get to Nico, but Nico's falling in deeper, and like, obviously he cuts Serena free, pushes her out, Laura gets her to shore and everything, but I'm like, oh man, Nico's gonna die, and he sees like Susanna. I'm like, okay, is this gonna be like, okay, I was wondering what they were gonna do, what they're gonna make it like, oh, it looks like Susanna, but then it's like, oh, he's kind of like tripping because the blood loss and everything, and then he's imagining it, and it's actually Laura pulling him out, but it's just like, no, like, she's there kind of like, I guess you could be like, okay, beckoning him, or like, Susanna reaching out for him to be like, hey, like, here's a hand, like, but she kind of, I guess it was like I gotta live, and so he swims up, bullet wound and everything, and I just love that moment of Laura has him, she's like, come on, get some help. He's like, if I don't die, you're going to be stuck with me, right? She's saying, I love you. And it's like, it's so cute and adorable. I legitimately was kind of worried for a second. I was like, man, are they going to pull? I mean, that was kind of like give and take with that situation. Because if I remember correctly, that is the exact spot where they actually met, where they both quote unquote died before in the original timeline. because that's where Laura jumped in. That's where Nico got dumped off. Obviously, things worked out very differently. Still found their way back to this water under different circumstances, but still, I guess, and ultimately it makes sense because it did kind of go completely full circle with everything. So, like I said, like overall, like that was the happy ending. Like everything was wrong. Nico didn't die, and I guess like the compensation for it was the fact is that in this, I mean, things that were done differently. I mean, for one, it turns out that like. I actually thought Kyle had something to do with Jesse's death. Apparently, like, no, that's the reason why he showed up at the funeral, because it was actually Colleen, and even she was like, oh, come on, like, that was how can, Jesse's death, oh, that's kind of like, that's just life. I couldn't, it's like, no, he's like, I know you had something to do with his murder, like his car crash or whatever, because it's like, oh, he turns up evidence at Tom's, and he just miraculously just happens to die afterwards, okay. So, because I'd wondered about that because, like, she had brought that up, like, last episode about, Serena had brought that up about the scarf, about Jesse, no, not necessarily the scarf, but Jesse coming to visit, and then Kyle put that too, and now I see, like, it's like, oh, Kyle was putting that together, he's like, wait, he showed up you met your dad, the DA, and then it's like, and he happens to die afterwards, it's like, he took some evidence, didn't he? And because most likely Kyle knew he had the scarf, and it's like the only reason why Jesse would be meeting the DA is if he decided to turn over the evidence. So it's just like I said, Kyle just couldn't do it because that was his family. Like he's the orphaned child that is like, hey, I got, you took me in, so I have to do right by you. And Logan's like my brother, so I have to take care of him in every step of the way. Because even during the whole original struggle with Susanna, like, even when the others, like Jesse and one of the brothers attacked, like, I think it was like Blake, had attacked him, Kyle was there kind of defending him. So, but like the whole thing I was about to get to is like, I guess arguably you could say like fate took its payback because like all three of them died and because Kyle crashes the plane into a mountain because it was like they were about to get away. I was actually surprised, like, no, the cops are going to get them, and the helicopter pulls off. I'm like, they're actually getting away. It's like, or like, I don't know, some idiotic part of my brain was like, is somebody going to fire a rocket launcher or something? Like, something's going to go down. Like, I thought it was some malfunction or something like that, but it's like, no, Kyle himself stepping in because he's like, this is the only way, because it's already out there in the news. Like, the fact is, his face is all over this. Like, they're like, everyone's seen. They were even talking about, yeah, in the short time it's been up, like that evidence had been seen like 30 million times. So there was no hiding what he had done. There was no backing away from it. Because, I mean, even like Logan himself said it, like, oh yeah, everyone that's associated with this is dead. I mean, the only other one left alive in this whole situation is Kyle and the dude that Laura had met that kind of brought that, the one that's kind of locked up in that hospital mental health institute, one of the brothers. Like, he's the only one alive in this whole situation. So, but for Kyle, it was his way of kind of like, I guess, ultimately doing right by everything. It's like he made the mistake of looking out for his brother rather than doing the right thing then. And even then, it took this circumstance for him to finally do the right thing. So many people have died over this situation. And it's like, once again, it's like, there's no running from this. They will always be remembered as the people who did this. So it's like, he's like, this is all I can do for you, Mom. So it's like them together holding each other when the plane crashes. So it's like, ultimately, I feel bad for out of anyone, Kyle. Colleen and Logan is like Logan's kind of a douchebag. Like, the reason why, what set him off is like, you're high and everything, but it's like, you're entitled douchebag. Why that all went down anyway. Colleen did a lot of terrible things to kind of cover this up. It does make you wonder, did Ruskin ever get saved? Because like, she was like, the moment my son is safe, then I'll come back and help you while he's still tied to the chair bleeding. But I mean, if you feel kind of bad for Kyle, because yes, Kyle did some bad things, but even they kind of got brought up at the beginning of the episode, and it's something I brought up before. It's like, Kyle wasn't about to kill no kid. Like, he wasn't about to kill Serena, so he made, like, that's why he was like, I'm not going to give Serena to you, because he knew ultimately what the plan was. Colleen didn't want that, but it's like, the moment you saw the safety pin on him, which is what keyed Laura off to be like, wait a minute, you're the one that ended up killing my baby girl, like, last, in the original timeline. So it's like, whoa. Because at first, like, last episode, because obviously, like, Colleen put it on, so I'm like, oh, was she the one? And the moment she gave it to Logan, I'm like, now that makes sense, because Logan seems like the most one about, like, oh man, we should kill her, because he's all like, oh, when the time comes, will Kyle actually do it? Yeah, he's taking care of Debray. Debray was a dude that killed like 10 ladies, so sure. Also, there's that whole, what was the lady's name? The one that actually survived? I think her name was Mimi. did she actually die of a heart attack? I mean, in retrospect, it never turned back to be like, oh yeah, that was something else. It's like, no, she legitimately just died. Or I guess her body just finally gave out. It's like fate just being like, you're holding on, and we just. It's like, holy crap. Because I kept saying like, no, there's no way she was murdered or something. It's like, no, apparently not. Like it was just kind of like, I mean, Debray's whole situation put her in a position to be killed anyway. But that was the whole aspect of fate still catching up with her anyway. So. I'm surprised nothing about Susanna's mom ever came up again about the fact is that because she's the one that warned Laura back in the first episode and everything. So I'm surprised that never really kind of came back up again. Like though, I mean, because it's an aspect of the show that they're never going to touch on. Like it's not like it's a miracle thing that happened. Like you met a spirit essentially, and now you kind of got a second chance. You went back in time. It's like, oh, how did it happen? Do we need an explanation? No, it's just kind of a thing that's like, it's always going to be one of those, great mysteries of the series. It'd be like, oh man, that was crazy. Like how that happened, right? It's like, we went back in time. That's going to be a story, a joke, always between Laura and Nico when you actually think about it. So, like I said, ultimately, going back to what I was saying, I kind of feel bad for Kyle. Yes, he did some bad things, but it's just, I don't know, like, especially because him and Serena were kind of getting close and everything. So, I mean, ultimately, he would have had to pay for what he did anyway. So, I actually feel really bad for the governor because now he's kind of being the one left holding all this. It's like his wife. I mean, I don't know if, eventually they probably found out, like, oh, their plane crashed or whatever. And it's like, wow, so that's where that is. But like, I do appreciate the final shot of it. It's just everyone's together. Grace, Ruby, Nico, Laura, the captain from the police, Laura's mom, and Jenny. Like I figured as much. She's okay. Just all of them there together taking one good family photo, and it's like it's obviously a beautiful ending. Granted, there's a conversation that we never got to have, and it's like that would have been a super awkward conversation to have. It's the whole Tom situation, but let's not talk about that because that's like super depressing, weird, and awkward. But nevertheless, like I said, it has a happy ending. So like from the very beginning, they were always saying this was a limited series. It is a conclusive ending. Like, even like the Korean show that this is based on, which is called God's Gift 14 Days, because the mom in that went back 14 days, which I think Laura went back, only 8 days in this, but nevertheless, semantics. So that was like a short, like one-off series anyway, so they kept that true. I was wondering, like, would they set this up to be like, oh, there potentially could be more, like, even though they said it was a limited series, there could be possibly wiggle room to make other stories similar to this, I guess. Maybe, but it does seem like this story is complete, so I appreciate that. Like, I'd like a series like to be like, hey, if it's one and done, let it be one and done, and I'm fine with that. I don't like it when something leaves off on a cliffhanger and it's like, oh, it got canceled. I was like, no, this was a complete another story, so like I say, I don't like. Yes, you have your thoughts about like, oh, but what afterwards? What after this? It's like, no, you just leave it as happily ever after. Everything worked out in the end. Danny's okay. Completely forgot to mention that he was there too. I kept feeling like I was missing someone, but like I said, all happy endings. So very, very good finale. Like I said, like complete closure all across the board. Why I love it even more. I love me getting 100%. Like I said, there's that whole time travel kind of like mysticism side of things that's like, don't worry about that. Which I'm, like I said, 100% okay with, because that's not something that's never been the focus of it. It's like, we've been given a second chance, let's do it. Like, maybe it's nature, maybe it's something higher, whatever the case may be. It happened, let's take advantage of it. So, like I said, ultimately, it still goes back to, oh man, it kind of sucks that Tom didn't make it. Like, he still would have ended up in jail, possibly for all the blackmailing. Him and Laura would have gotten divorced anyway, but still, what's positivity? No, positive, no. I'm sorry. Just had to sneak that in there one more time. It's like, hey, don't get me wrong. I love J.R. Bourne. Will always be Papa Argent to me. So, which is going to be interesting considering this is ending, and I think this Sunday is like the series finale for Teen Wolf too. So I don't know. That's neither here nor there. So I mean, that's it. I'm just rambling at this point. That's all I really want to talk about in this episode. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.